In this video, we're going to be talking about diseases in the aquarium hobby and how you can prevent them from happening and how you can actually cure them. We're going to be talking about some of the common ones you can get and some of the remedies for those as well. So make sure you stay around to the end of the video to listen to all the information I'm going to give you guys. Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to Keeping Fish Simple. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about disease and I'm going to break this video down into a few different segments. So the first segment is going to be prevention. Then we're going to be talking about some easy fixes you can use to get rid of diseases. Then we're going to be talking about some other issues that could be causing your diseases. And then we're going to finish up the video and I'm going to mention a bunch of different common diseases and give you some photos and some images to help you diagnose what could be happening or things to look out for in the aquariums that you're keeping. So disease is obviously an awful thing in the aquarium hobby and it comes down to a bunch of different factors which I'm going to mention today, but I'm going to try and help you guys out as much as possible to make sure that you guys aren't getting diseases in your aquariums. So people who maintain aquariums properly and some really experienced aquarists generally never have problems with diseases in their aquariums. Almost all diseases can be avoided by maintaining a proper habitat with a really good balanced diet and really good water parameters that don't fluctuate very much. So pretty much every single disease that's in the aquarium hobby comes down to stress. So stress in your fish is absolutely awful because it creates uneasement in the fish and can cause their bodies to fluctuate in temperature and in chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So it's really important that we understand that pretty much every single disease comes from stress. So some things that cause stress with your fish in your fish tank comes down to things like shipping, your water quality, your diet, aggression from other fish, hiding places in the aquarium, and a whole bunch of other things like filtration, pretty much anything, and especially temperature fluctuations are really, really bad. So I'm really quickly going to talk about some things that you can start doing in your aquarium today that will help you prevent diseases happening now. So my first piece of advice for an easy fix in your aquarium is obviously going to be water changes. So my main principle is 25% once a week, and if you can stick to that, you'll have heaps of success in your aquarium. It depends obviously on the amount of food that you're feeding and your filtration, but 25% normally works for every single aquarist. And if you are another hobbyist and you don't agree with this, that's my principle, that's what I go by, and I've had the most success with that. So my second tip is filter maintenance. So filter maintenance is something that's sometimes overlooked in the aquarium hobby. Now I like to keep my filter maintenance down by keeping sponge filters in my aquariums, but if you're a person with mechanical filters or external filters, it's really important that you're cleaning out those filters once every 6 months to make sure that those filters aren't building up a bunch of gunk or actually providing a place for diseases to breed and continue to live in the aquarium after you've medicated. So filter maintenance is a huge thing, and my main principle is once every 6 months that filter should be cleaned, and when you clean it with aquarium water. Do not clean it with tap water because you want to keep as many good bacteria in that filter as possible, and cleaning it with tap water is going to kill all those. So my number 3 easy fix is a varied and high quality diet. So don't buy crappy fish food from a grocery store, buy your fish food from a local fish store because you want to also support a local fish store because how much do we like local fish stores more than pet stores? You want to buy a high quality food and you can normally ask someone at a local fish store for the best quality food for your fish and they will give that to you. And you also want to feed them a balanced diet. So this can be in the form of frozen foods or live foods, as well as some flakes and some algae wafers here and there just to supplement some of the chemicals that they need and those vitamins that they need in their body to flourish. And by doing this, first of all, you'll prevent the fish from getting bad diseases, but you'll also build up their immune system and your fish will have way better color if you're feeding them live foods in a balanced diet. So that's my third tip. My fourth piece of advice for an easy fix in your aquarium to stop diseases is to understock your aquariums. I always make sure that my aquariums are understocked, and you never want to overstock because what can happen is huge fluctuations in chemicals in your aquarium like ammonia and stuff because of the waste that's produced by the massive amount of fish. Also, if there's heaps of space in the aquarium for the fish to hide, they're much less likely to be attacked and to have stress problems. So that's my number 4 piece of advice. So my 5th quick tip is to put your light on a timer. Now a timer should go for about 10 hours on and then the rest of the time off. And this is because more than that should cause algae spikes and you don't want that. And also, who wants to live under a light for their whole life? The fish need darkness to sleep, and you're gonna do them a huge favor by making sure that they've got that cycle like it is out in the wild. Number 6 is a super easy fix, and that's to use tap water conditioning. When you do a water change, you don't want any of the chemicals that come from the water in your aquariums that can kill fish, and it actually really can ruin your filters because all those bacteria are very, very sensitive to that kind of chlorine, and that's what the chlorine is designed for in your tap water, is to kill that stuff, and we don't want to kill that in our aquarium. Okay, so now that we've got the basics out of the way and we've established everything you need to know in the quick tips, we can start talking about some more complicated things. So these are going to be pretty much my 10 commandments for making sure that you're not going to get disease in your aquarium. So these are going to be some tips that can come in really useful, and some things you might not know. Okay, so my first piece of advice for this segment is to never buy new arrivals in an aquarium store. You always want to let your fish stay there for about a week, because obviously when fish come in, they've been shipped, they can be highly stressed, and if you buy those fish the day or the day after that they've been shipped in, obviously they can be sick and you can take them home and they can die, or those diseases haven't kind of been cured yet, or they can have a bunch of different other issues that you don't want. So my general rule is to leave them in there for about a week. And now I know a lot of people who want a fish straight away when they come from the pet store because they're worried that someone else is going to buy them. I still wouldn't even try and buy a fish that's not been in the store for at least a week, because otherwise, you're taking a huge risk with those fish dying. So number 2 on my commandments of preventing fish disease is to acclimate. Acclimating is a huge factor in all of fish keeping, and a lot of people overlook it because they're not patient enough to do it. So acclimating is pretty much taking a new fish from a bag and pretty much climatizing that fish to your water, because obviously the water is going to be different in the fish store and the parameter is going to be a little bit different. So if you send that fish straight into your aquarium's water, it's going to go into shock and it's going to be a little bit scared, and it's more likely to be stressed and have a health issue. I know especially with shrimp and things like that, they really easily die after they've been stressed out. So it's really important to acclimate your fish. Now you can do drip acclimations, and you can do, obviously you can float the bag in there. I'd highly recommend going to the effort and doing a drip acclimation. A drip acclimation can take only up to 2 hours, and it literally saves you the world, because 2 hours or risking a fish dying, I think I know which option I'd go for. So number 3 on the commandments, this is so important. Don't mix your water with anyone else's. Keep your aquarium water to yourself. You want your aquariums to have a personal space bubble, because you do not want other people's water in there. Other people's water is nasty. Other people's water has disgusting fish herpes, like the duckweed that I've got in that aquarium. Other people's water has disgusting diseases that can come into your aquarium. You do not want to mix it. So what I'd recommend doing is, when you acclimate, putting your net like this, pouring the water and letting the net catch the fish, and then putting the fish in the aquarium. You do not want to be mixing with other people's water. It's just disgusting. You don't want to get your aquariums to have STDs in them. Number 4 on my tips is, if you are mixing fish in an aquarium, to prevent aggression and to prevent stress with new fish, add hiding spaces for those new fish to hide, because then they can hide away from the aggression and they can be less stressed out or chased around the aquarium when they're new. It's a really important factor, because all the fish have to get used to each other when they're put into the aquarium. So the 5th commandment is to leave the light off when you add your fish to the aquarium. Now this is important because obviously the fish don't probably want a lot of light coming into their eyes when they're being added, but they'll also just go to sleep, and it avoids a lot of stress that they can have when they first get added to an aquarium, and it kind of lets them settle in more easily and acclimates them overnight, or however long you leave the light off for. So now that we've wrapped up the 5 commandments of fish keeping, prevention of disease, we're going to talk about the holy grail and the one piece of knowledge that you guys need to have in your aquarium to make sure that you're never going to get disease. So that piece of advice is to have a quarantine tank and to quarantine all your fish before you add them to your aquariums. So the way I do this is, obviously when I add fish, I quarantine them, but I do it in a little bit of a different method, and the method I'm going to give you is different to the one that I use. But the method that I use is, because I don't have a lot of space for a lot of aquariums, every time I get new fish, I first of all give them a multi-cure medication, and I let them do that for a week, and I will monitor those fish every day, like meticulously, for 30 days to make sure that there's no sicknesses in any of the other fish. And obviously I do not mix, but quarantining is the most important thing that you can do to prevent diseases. Okay, so a quarantine tank is usually about 10 to 20 gallons, depending on the size of the fish that you're putting in there. You put the fish in, obviously you want the water in there to be cycled, and then basically what you want to do is you want to medicate those fish straight away with a multi-cure, just to make sure that they, all the diseases that are in those fish come out. If there were any, there probably wasn't, if you're lucky. And then you want to leave them in there for 30 days and you want to monitor them. So you also want a sponge filter. You don't want any carbon filters, because the carbon filters take the medications out of the water, because they add like heaps more surface area for them to be put in. And you also don't want any porous volcanic rocks or anything in there as well. Now another thing with quarantining is you want a separate net, siphon, and pretty much everything else that you put into the aquarium to be used in the quarantine tank, because otherwise we're going to contaminate with our other aquariums, and it pretty much gets rid of the purpose of having that quarantine tank. Now, the most important thing here is you leave them for about 30 days and you just monitor them to make sure that they're not going to get sick, and then you can add them to your main big community aquariums or to your breeding programs or whatever you want to do. Now, as well, with preventing disease, you always want to look out for your fish, and you always want to be watching and making sure that there's no weird behavior happening with them. So look out for rigid fins, tight fins, bloating, white spots, sores on them, and pretty much any abnormal behavior. You always want your fish to be happy and swimming around, and if your fish stops getting hungry or starts to look a bit different, definitely have a look at some of these diseases I'm going to give you now. So now there's two different types of diseases that you can have. So I know this video's got a lot of information, but I'm going to try and break this down as much as I can for you. So there's two different types. There's parasites and there's bacterial infections. So I'm going to go over the list of common parasites that are in your aquarium. So my first parasite is ick. Now, ick is the most common disease in the aquarium. If you're wondering what ick looks like, it's a lot of small white dots that are raised on the fish's body, and you can see them and they spread. They're very contagious around the aquarium, so it's really important that if you spot even one of these dots that you go and buy the cure. So when curing ick, there's two things you want to do. First of all, there's plenty of ick medicines that you can buy, and they're generally a little bit more pricey, but they're not more than $30. And you want to buy that and you want to dose it with the rate that's on the back of the packet. And then the other thing you can do is to raise the temperature just a little bit in your aquarium. So ick is normally caused when the temperature drops in your aquarium, and this causes the fish to get a little bit stressed, and it provides a really awesome environment for ick to form. So by boosting up that temperature, the life cycle of ick will increase and it'll actually die down quicker. So increasing the temperature also helps the fish's immunity. So buying that medication, increasing the temperature is super important. So another disease that's not common is fish lice. So fish lice are little crustaceans that stick onto the fish. Normally they come from when you have a pond and you take the fish out of the pond and put them into an aquarium. So my cure for fish lice is to use Dimilin. I use Dimilin for a bunch of different things, but killing crustaceans is an awesome one. So my next thing is anchorworms. So anchorworms is very common with fish, and it's little worms that stick to the fish's gills, and the best way to kill them is using Dimilin. So next up is flukes. Flukes are super common with fish in the hobby. Fish with flukes usually have clamped fins, they lose a lot of color, and they have difficulty breathing. The main cure for flukes is to use Praziquantel. That's another chemical that you can buy, and you can just find all these little chemicals on the back of cures. Usually you can actually buy cures for all these individual diseases, but you want to look for that chemical because it kills that certain parasite. So the next parasite is roundworms. So this is really, really common with guppies, and there is a few things you can do. So roundworms results in the fish getting really bloated, or the actual opposite of that, the fish getting really, really skinny. And what that comes from is there being worms in the fish. So you can also diagnose that with white feces or actual worms coming out of the anus of the fish. Now you can also buy medications for this, and there's lots of fluke cures that you can buy at pet stores. There's no main chemical, you can use a lot of multi-cures, and this will get rid of that. So those were the main parasites. Now I'm going to talk about bacterial infections. So the second most common thing that your fish will get sick from is fin rot. Fin rot obviously rots the fins, and it's normally like a white film on the fish. And with all of these bacterial diseases, the best thing to use is an antibacterial multi-cure med. So the next disease is fungi. Now this looks more cottony and cloudy on the fish and more furry, and the best thing to use to kill that is multi-cure antibacterial kinds of medicines, and that will get rid of that for you. And my last bacterial infection is dropsy. This is really common as well with guppies, and it comes when you overfeed fish. Dropsy causes the fish to kind of pine cone and get really, really bloated, and the scales kind of come out, and it's not good looking. But the best thing to get rid of that is, first of all, take that fish out of the aquarium and then use an antibacterial medicine on that as well. So that pretty much wraps up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciated it. If you guys learned something out of this, please like the video. It means a lot to me, and also consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.